I don't mean to overwhelm you or the listeners, but this is a very critical point that people ultimately need to understand. And I will guarantee that they will go back and they will listen to this episode and they will say, oh my gosh, you know what? Charlie was in fact right. And that is, if you look at an A player in 2025, that A player went here. They used AI in the form of, okay, I'll use it to analyze data. I'll use it to create content, all that other stuff. Like they'll use it to help create some degree of leverage. In 2026, it's actually going to be measured in workflows. By the end of 2026, that same A player will be 100 times more productive than the A player in 2025 because they found ways to leverage workflows to get more done in the same amount of time and hours that they're spending right now. And start thinking, not in terms of will AI do this or does AI do this? Assume it does it for you. Just start asking the question, how do I make this work for me?
Welcome to Big Questions. This is Cal Fussman. As you can tell from the top of this episode, there's going to be a lot of advice coming your way because it's coming from a coach. Charles Gaudet is a great coach. He's coached thousands of CEOs over the years through his company, Predictable Profits. Many of those CEOs are making 7 and 8 figures. There's some people who are just born to do what they do, and Charles is one of them. Not only will he coach you in the next hour, but after our conversation, he was even coaching me. He didn't even realize it. His wife was calling him to dinner. It was almost impossible for him to stop. Charles just can't help making people better at what they do. I thought he'd be a good person to talk with because if he knew the leaders of the company so well, he'd know how the people who work for them could best keep their jobs in the age of AI. So much doomsday talk out there. This podcast, it's blue skies. Even my sponsor is all blue skies. Moments by LuxuryConciergeTravel.com. Moments helps companies organize bucket list trips that they want to reward employees for doing great work. You'll hear how that works at the heart of this podcast because humans doing great work in the time of AI is at the heart of this podcast. That's why I was curious about Charles. When I did some research, I learned that Charles has been helping entrepreneurs avoid the founder's trap. That's what he called the difficulty most people who start businesses find themselves in as they begin to succeed because they got it off the ground with their reputation and hustle. They were at the center of all the sales and activity. That can make it hard for them to step back as the company grows. But it turns out they need to step back for their own health and the well-being of the company. And the best way that can happen is for the people working underneath the founders to step up and make themselves more valuable. This episode is about how you can use this opening in whatever company you're working for to make the work you do more relevant. And you know what else Charles tipped me off to? Another way you can make yourself more irreplaceable in the age of AI is to ask the right questions. Think about it. AI has all the answers, but if you're not asking it the right questions, you're not going to be getting the best answers. And the age of AI is all about your questions. What could possibly make a guy with a podcast called Big Questions feel better than hearing that? I mean, make my day. Charles and I had a wonderful and long conversation. I've edited it down to highlights so you can focus on them in about an hour. You ready? Let's go to Charles Gaudet and set the scene. He's traveling around the world with Tony Robbins, and he met an entrepreneur named Keith Cunningham.
One of the things that he said in some of our travels that stuck with me is he said, I oftentimes get my employees asking me for a raise. And I give them a very simple response: make yourself worth more than I'm paying you, and I'll give you a raise. It's that easy. And so the same thing when it comes to the team, make yourself more valuable, make yourself worth more than I'm paying you, and it becomes easy. When we talk about AI and AI replacing different team members, the thing is AI only replaces different team members if AI produces more value than you do, right? So if AI produces more value than you do, then you're going to be replaced. But that's only if you're thinking at a very commoditized, okay, I do this, I do that. You don't try to add any more value back to the organization. For those, and I just had a conversation with a client this morning. It was actually a CMO this morning. And he said, what do I need to do to remain more relevant and more valuable into the organization? So the easiest thing that you can do is actually to start thinking and how you can use AI to increase your productivity. And so, use AI to increase your productivity and begin to up-level yourself. And there's ways that we have to think of workflows and all that other stuff, but that's ways in which now you're increasing your value. So as employees, there's a multiple that you can look at. Like right now, if you're being paid, I'm going to use easy math. If you're getting paid $100,000 and you're getting paid $100,000 and you're producing $100,000 in value for what you're getting paid, meaning it's a fair value. I'm paying $100,000. I feel like I got a good investment, $100,000. Now leveraging AI, you could actually be that $100,000 employee now being worth 120 based on your output, being 150, being 200, being so forth.
Now, check this out.
And here's the interesting thing. You actually don't need to know any answers. You don't need to know any answers. And when I realized that, it became less overwhelming for me. That's the beautiful thing of working with AI. I don't have to have any answers. I have to hang around with smart people like you and be in groups and communities with other smart people, ask them questions, learn how they think. And as I know how they think, I can go to tools like AI and ask AI, my goal is to blank. How can you help me do it? And then it will tell me how it can help me do it. And then I may try it. And maybe I get the outcome I want, or maybe I don't get the outcome I want. Here's what happened. Where did I go wrong? How can I fix this? This is what I want to do. And it will help you. If you're an employee with an organization, you could say, I am the COO at predictableprofits.com. Please visit predictableprofits.com, understand the company, the industry, and the competitors. In what ways will AI disrupt me and my role over the next 12 months? And I'll tell you, these are all the ways it's going to disrupt you and everything else. And then go back and say, what are the skills that I need to develop in order to remain relevant and valuable for my role as COO within Predictable Profits or whatever organization it is. And it will tell you this is all you need to do. And you can ask it to create a learning plan for you. You can, all this other stuff. But this is what I'm talking about. It's you don't have to have the answers. I need to know the questions to ask.
Yeah.
So that I can use these tools that will then tell me what I need to do to become more effective. Does that make sense?
Here's a tangential question. Do I also go to the CEO and say, you know what, I went to AI and I asked AI how I can step my game up because I want to add more value. But I don't know how you see the situation. Could you let me know how it would be in your mind to get the most out of me? Is that a fair thing to do, or is that taking up the CEO's time? Because if they're in a founder's trap, they don't have much time to sit around and think about this. But that's why I'm just curious: is Is that a good place to go? Does it depend on the situation? From all your experience, what can you tell us?
I might even simplify it a little more. I might just say, I want to be the most valuable employee this company has ever seen. What needs to happen in order for that to be true?
What does that do to the CEO's mind, hearing that?
I've embedded the line, the most valuable employee, in their mind. So now I know they're trying to be the most valuable employee. So now that becomes more make them and that. And then it gives me this idea that this is their goal. This is their ambition. So if I am forced to make a cut, am I going to cut the person that is just sitting there, doing their thing, is just kind of, I pay them for their job. They do what they're paid for, and so be it. Am I going to cut the person that literally came to me and said, how do I become the most valuable employee that you've ever had? And it's like, well, I like this guy. I like where he's thinking. I like the approach, but this other person, I'm paying 100, I'm getting 100. And I think I can save that. Maybe that person that has to go. So it all depends. I know that there's a lot of people that are losing their jobs and so forth. And I feel that the people who are ultimately are those that are losing their jobs, it's only because the world is moving faster and they're not moving at all. Their mediocrity is a very dangerous place to be in right now. Contentment is a very dangerous place to be in right now because the world is punishing mediocrity and contentment. We're for the next few years, we're going to have to embrace discomfort, and there'll be a new norm for a little while. Some people will see that as a negative. Some people will get more juiced and more excited and more enthusiastic because what they're going to do is they're going to see the potential that it creates in them, in their abilities, in their how they can create impact and all that other jazz. So most of the people I hang around with are excited about it because they see that it allows them, those people that have a focus on serving, on creating impact and everything else, they see this as a way to multiply the impact that they're creating. And it's exciting to them. I want to add one more thing. You mentioned to me when we started this conversation about, your age and so forth. I heard an interview. A friend of mine named Mike Canings was interviewing a gentleman named Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan just turned 80 years old.
Right.
And Mike said to Dan, so what are your goals over the next 10 years? And what Dan said after that has become my new life's goal. Like, this is the big thing for me.
Lay it on me.
He said, when I'm 90, I want to be more ambitious than I am right now. And I'm like, you know what? That is my new mantra. As I get older, I want to be more ambitious with every year, every decade, and so forth. I just want to be more ambitious. Isn't that a wonderful way? Just a great outlook.
I tie that in my mind to saying I want to be more curious than I am right now, because I've always, I guess the trade that I made is I've never considered myself ambitious. I've always considered it the curiosity pushing me forward as opposed to the ambition. But I got to learn this. I was interviewing Kobe Bryant. And as I was driving back, he had called me up to ask for advice on what questions to ask in a documentary he was making. And I'm thinking, this guy is the most ambitious, and he's the Mamba.
Yeah,
It's me or you, and it's going to be me. And I don't have that. I'm just pure curiosity. And so I thought to myself, wow, I wonder how this is going to go. Maybe he's going to have no respect for me at all because he's going to see that I'm not going to be like staring him down. And the reality is, when we started talking, he valued curiosity so highly. And it was like in tandem with ambition, because you can't be ambitious without being curious about how to get where your ambition wants to take you.
Yeah. And guess what the next superpower is? Is a superpower having the answers, or is a superpower knowing the questions?
Yeah, the questions.
And how do you develop the questions? By being curious.
There you are.
By being curious.
And
right?
That is why at the age of 69, I am feeling like I'm 22.
Yeah.
It feels like my time has come.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about, well, let me start it basically. How many CEOs have you talked to over the years?
Yeah, thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah, thousands.
And so you know the way they think. You know more or less what they know, what they don't know. So I'm just going to pull this off on a side just to see if I'm going to find a difference between a founder CEO and a big company CEO. Do they have to think radically differently to succeed, or is it basically the same thought pattern guides a great CEO?
It actually connects very well into our conversation. And typically, and I don't want to generalize founder, because instead, why don't we say based on success, right? So based on level of success, because founders come in at different levels and different experience levels and so forth. But in general, and here's what I've learned: the more successful they are, the more intelligent they are, the more they realize they don't know. And as a result of realizing the more they don't know, they become insatiably curious. On the flip side of the coin, the least experienced they are reminds me of a teenager. They think they know everything. Don't need any advice. I got it. I figured it out. Boom. And that's the difference. The people who think they know it all actually are going to be the least successful. The most successful people are insatiably curious. And so it's really interesting how that works, because they realize the more they know, the more they don't know.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little example. This happened, and I'm curious to see how you respond to this, like from the mind of the CEO, because it gets to this point of the CEO realizing what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was called into a company that actually became the sponsor of this podcast. Mm-hmm. It's a company called Acceleration, and they created this product called Moments. I'm going to ask you about a little later, because I know what you think about travel and the benefits of it. So basically, this CEO had an idea to create a company that would sell white glove concierge trips to other companies so that they could reward these employees who are doing great work.
Sure.
And what he did is he had me come in and just teach people about asking questions from a different angle.
Yep.
In a way you don't anticipate. And we had a session where we asked his company for ideas on how they would make this company called Moments go into the stratosphere.
Yep.
And they all, and he, not only that, but he said, and the winning question, and Cal's going to choose the winning question. The winning question, that person who wrote it is going to get a trip to where they want to go anywhere in the world. So there was a little energy going, and the questions come in, and I got to choose the best question. And I'm looking at these questions, and I got to like the top 15, but there was one that just like, whoa, like, who is this person? And then I saw another, and I said, wow, and another. And I started to talk to the CEO because he wanted to know which questions I thought were the best. And I started going down a list, and he said, Cal, 5 of the questions you just mentioned were written by the same person.
No way.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And all of a sudden I saw his eyes saying, oh my God, what do I know about this person? How good is this person that I realized he does a good job, but she's asking like the top 90% type of questions.
Wow.
And here's my question. How many CEOs are in that situation where they're going to work every day and they have people in the company who have this? They have this something special that it just needs to be unlocked. They need to have a reason to give it out in order to showcase who they are for the CEO, because the CEO, she or he might really want to know. What's the CEO thinking on that?
That all comes down to culture, because there's going to be cultures that encourage collaboration and that encourages all levels of the organization to contribute insights and so forth. And then there are other company cultures that I've seen where it's not safe. It's not safe to ask questions. It's not, or to question, not safe to ask questions or question. And there is a culture of where people operate in silos and they just do their work and they get things done. And so you're less likely going to get a question environment. You're more likely going to create it when you create this collaboration environment and a culture where it's encouraged to ask collaborative questions and so forth. So, a lot of that is going to be dependent on the culture itself. One of the things, for example, in my company, is that we have this belief that there are reasons and results. The only thing that matters are the results, right? So by that, we make data-based decisions. Anybody's welcome to suggest something. If we don't have the answers, we're not going to sit there and we're not going to debate it forever and ever. Instead, we're like, well, we don't have the data to back it up, so why don't we just test it? So go ahead. If you think this is a good idea, come up with a plan and a minimal budget to test it, and let's test it and let's see what happens. So it encourages innovation, and by encouraging innovation is created by asking questions on, how do I solve for, or what needs to happen to, or whatever that might be. And so it really comes down to that culture of innovation and how you foster that within the environment. And it also comes into an easy question that a CEO could go back to the team is, what am I not seeing? What am I not seeing? A lot of CEOs will turn around and they'll go to their team and they'll say, this is what I want to do. And they dump it on them instead of saying, hey, here's what I'm thinking of. Why won't this work? And then it's like, okay, this is why I think, come back, figure it out, bring it back to the team. I heard you, that I've addressed this. Now tell me, what are all the reasons why you think that this may be a home run success? You just start asking all these different questions and you get better answers. So, I learned that over time. I tell this to my team. I actually had a client the other day. This is actually several years ago. She's still working with us now. She's a mom. And she said, so I've been wanting to have this conversation with you. And I don't know if I'm wasting my time, but whatever, I'm just going to put it out there. I said, yeah, go ahead. What's up? Totally fine. Well, I have this agency and it's doing well. I just don't know if it will ever be anything huge. And I should probably just be fine with where it's at. I go, why? I have these little boys that I absolutely adore. It's really important to me as a mom that I can be there for them. They got off the bus at 2:30 and I want to be there with them at 2:30. I want to play with them. I want to sit there, help them do their homework. My husband comes home. I want to spend time with my husband, make dinner and so forth, and, be there with my family. I said, okay. I like to travel, every few weeks, get in our RV and travel, and I like to do that. I go, okay. So should I just be fine with where I'm at right now? I said, I've learned over the years that if you want better answers, you got to ask better questions. Could you ask me another question? Maybe a really good one that's tied to your ideal outcome? And she thought about it for a minute and she goes, okay, how can I create a multi-million-dollar business while still being able to pick my kids up at 2:30 p.m. and do this and that? I go, that's a wonderful question. Yeah. Would you like me to show you how to do it? And now she's done it. So when you ask better questions, you get better answers. Another woman, she was only doing $250,000 a year. And so she ran a therapy organization. She was the main person. Everybody came to her. It was her name. It was her reputation. Everybody knew that she was the best and so forth. And so she was like, well, this is just kind of where it is. Everybody else in my industry operates in a very similar way. This is what I'm earning. Is there anything you can do to help me? So, well, I've learned if you want better answers, you got to ask better questions. Let me ask you, what is the most ideal outcome for you? And she's like, well, how is it that I can turn what I do into a multi-million-dollar organization? I go, that's a great question. Let me show you how to do it. Now she makes $250,000 every 3 weeks.
You know what? This is a great place to introduce you to another happy woman. The heart of the Moment sales team, Sarah Levenbaum. Now she's got a great job. Think about it. She goes to work every day to help people get rewarded for the amazing work they do with trips around the world put together by Moment's white glove concierge team. She's literally delivering bucket list experience to people for doing a great job. Over the weeks to come, you're going to be hearing from quite a few people who won these trips and were blown away by the experiences. But first, let me introduce you to Sarah for a little background. I asked her, what's the difference between taking a vacation and being rewarded a Moment's trip?
There's a big difference, and we see it all the time. Our concierge let us know how this goes, and a lot of folks don't feel like those little things that we do to make a trip really smooth and wonderful are necessary. And we say, oh, no. you want that. You want the transfer. You want the 24/7 service. You want that extra one-on-one tour guide, for instance. And this is a reward, and reward travel is a lot different, as we call it, incentive quality, right? So we want people to feel really rewarded and to feel really spoiled in how we approach the trips and the travel. You just don't know how amazing it is to walk out of your hotel and already the black car is waiting for you to zip you away and have a, exclusive experience at some, Paris bistro and to, walk the streets learning about how they make chocolate. It's just a different level. And we hear when people come back and said, oh, now I get it.
What goes into creating that white glove dynamic?
Part of that experience, which I think is lacking in a lot of other solutions that are out there, is that one-on-one concierge experience where we're getting to know you, getting to know your family, how you travel, what's important to you.
In the end, do they have an experience that is memorable in a way that they wouldn't have created themselves or even couldn't have created themselves?
So let's say you're a salesperson and you're on the road a lot selling and making presentations, and this is a chance to take your family along with you to something that they're going to get quality time with you. You're going to have quality time with them and do something maybe you guys would never have guessed you would do, to your point. Or get to do something that really inspires you or inspires your family. And you come back a totally different person. What they're doing is something different, and it's not just a trip, it's true reward.
Now that you got a little background on Moments, I thought, let me get a little background on Charles. You've been an entrepreneur since you were 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm looking at you at 4 in a movie, what am I seeing?
You're seeing a kid who is alone, who is desperately wanting to get his father's love and attention because his dad's worked every waking hour of every day, 7 days a week, up before, out to work before I'm awake, came home after I went to bed. And when I did see him, he would say, kid, if you ever want to make something of yourself, be an entrepreneur.
What did your dad do for a living?
He owned a construction company. So he built, at that time, he built mostly industrial and commercial buildings and did some renovation and stuff like that. So that's what he was doing. And actually, I know that's what he was doing as he got older. Maybe before that, as he was building his company, maybe he was still doing like smaller projects, decks and stuff. I don't know. I just know it was construction at some level. Progressively, he'd do industrial and commercial stuff.
And so how did you take that advice at 4? What if I'm looking this on a movie screen, where am I? What am I seeing?
I sat on my front porch on the outside of my home. I had all this construction paper and a box of crayons, and I just started creating artwork. And I put them in a trash bag, a green trash bag of all things, just shoved them in a trash bag, went to the neighbors knocking on the door, and just went door to door selling artwork to the neighbors, and they would give me money for it. And so, I mean, and the thing is that I was this cute little kid, and so they would just give me money, because how can you say no to a little kid who's asking for, I think it was like 50 cents.
What do you learn from that experience? And like, what are the levels of learning about entrepreneurship? Are there many? I'm just starting now.
Yeah.
So I'm basically like that little kid walking around with drawings. I should say maybe I'm a little ahead of that, but I lived in like a world of publishing, and then when you're in that world, there's a structure created. And you can get a job, but there's like a ceiling on what you can make. And then I went out and I started to speak. So there's no ceiling there. That was a nice way to lean into it. But I'm wondering now, are there like layers of things I have to learn in order to get the most out of myself? Or do I have to just ask that question the way the woman who wanted to have the family life balanced with a more ambitious business life?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things to pay attention to. First of all, nobody cares how much money you want to make. So don't go into business trying to make money. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about how much money you want to make. What they care is, can you actually solve a problem for me? And if you can solve a problem for me, you get paid in direct proportion to the impact you create for others. So if you focus on creating the biggest impact possible, you'll be rewarded in direct correlation to the impact that you provide. The bigger the problem you solve, the more important the problem to solve, people will pay more money based on the problem that you're willing to solve for them, right? So in other words, if you say to me, Charlie, I will give you a haircut. All right, well, that's a okay problem, but I'll pay you $40 to give me a haircut. If you say, Charlie, I can remove your stress and do this and that, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden it's like, wow, okay, that's pretty significant. And it's like, that would be several $1,000s. Okay, that's a big problem. You can get paid in direct proportion to the problem you're solving and fixing. So that's one. Go obsessively focus on creating that impact. Buckminster Fuller, I don't know if you're familiar with this. Yep, Bucky Fuller. He did this study way back on Darwin's survival of the fittest. Now, when we think of Darwin's survival of the fittest, we think of the biggest, baddest, toughest animal there that's going to turn around and beat everybody up. And everybody kind of thinks like that's Darwin's survival of the fittest. What Bucky actually discovered was something quite remarkable. He said, look, if you look at lions And you look at these lions, and the king of the jungle, all the other lions out there they'll make their kill. They'll drag the kill to the king of the jungle. They'll make sure that he gets to eat first. And then everybody else, they get the scraps and the leftovers. So the king of the jungle seamlessly looks like he's just lazy, sitting there and the whole bit. But what happens is there's an intruder that comes in, and that intruder threatens the life of the pride. So the king will put his life on the line out there to make sure that the rest of the pride is safe and then ultimately protected. So as a result of the king making sure the rest of the pride is protected, the pride conspires around the king to make sure the king survives. We see the same thing in business. When you're able to create an impact into somebody's life, provide them with more love, more wealth, more attractiveness, more health, more whatever that might be, and you do that in such a way that it resonates and they love it. They conspire around you to give you more money, more referrals, more repeat business, and whatever positive reviews, because they want you to succeed, because your very success actually helps them get more of everything that they want. And so when you think about it in terms of, adding to the value of all these other people, that it actually helps you to grow substantially and massively and so forth. So that's a really big part. There's a couple other parts. The other part is that when you're starting a business, what is it? Parkinson's law that says an object in motion stays in motion, an object at rest stays in rest. I think that's what it is. Is that what it is?
I'm not sure, but I'm going to look it up as soon as we get off.
Well, we'll pretend that it's Parkinson's law. Okay. But, if you've ever gone camping and you take, you go to start a fire and you take those two sticks, you rub them together, it takes so much time, takes so much energy at the point that you want to give up more than anything else. All of a sudden you get this little red ember. At this little red ember, it's super fragile still. You got to get a flame. So you nurse it, you put some pine needles on it and so forth. You get a flame. Now you get a flame. And it's still pretty fragile, but you put little bigger sticks, you get a fire, then a bonfire and so forth. And then once you get this massive fire, it doesn't matter if you throw water on it, you're not going to put the fire out easy, right? And that's a theory of momentum. Richard Branson said, when you know how to leverage momentum, that you leave your competitors trailing in the wake. So when you're starting the business in the very beginning, it's going to take so much time, so much effort. At one point, you're going to sit there and be, is it even worth it? Yeah, you're going to want to give up more than anything else, right? And then you begin to get that red ember and you begin to grow it and so forth. People think that businesses survive or die due to a good idea. That's not true. They survive or die based on the amount of momentum that a business has. So that fire, when you have a huge fire, you have a lot of momentum. You can throw water on it. You're not going to put it out. So your goal is, how do I create that momentum so that with that momentum, then, you continue to build and grow and so forth, right? So if you look at, all right, well, how do I build that momentum? It's the easiest way for me to build that momentum, given the limited resources I have as a startup. You would look at partnerships and you would say, who has the audience that I can help and support and make an impact in, that I can work with them to partner with them, where they can either refer people to me or whatever that might look like. So then boom. And the way you form those partnerships, this would be like a little mini class, but the way you form those partnerships are known as a triple win. A triple win means I'm not going to go to you and I'm not going to say, hey, just refer business to me. Okay. Everything's great. Let's just do that. You refer business to me and we're all going to be good. Because then that actually, somebody's going to lose. You'll refer business to me. I'll give you a commission, but the person who purchased ends up losing, because when I say they lose, they may find out that you got a commission and I got something, but they didn't get another benefit. Oh. So it's like, it's a win-win-lose. Okay. So we look at this as a triple win. We say, look, here's the deal. If you send people over to me, not only will you get a commission, but then what will happen is I'll give them a benefit that they would never have experienced out in the public. So now everybody ends up getting a win. And there's so many different ways and forms that you can create partnership. I have a training that we go on forever on what this might look like. But even with the partner, and we have several partners now, when we partner with an organization, I don't look at them and go, hey, refer business over to me and I'll make you all this money. Instead, I actually want the commission that I pay them to be just like gravy. Instead, I look at it and I go, how can I help their clients in such an impactful way that by them making more money, that the business referring me to them gets a tremendous upside. And so our partners realized that anybody that works with predictable profits, their company grows. And as a result, they stay longer with our partner and they spend more money with the partner. So we've had several partners that go, I don't even care about the commission, because as long as they work with you, they grow, they spend more money with us, everything's fine. I'm happy. They're happy. We're happy. Everybody's happy. I don't even care about the commission. So when you approach it, even in a partnership where you're like, I'm going to make a meaningful impact into a KPI, and I'm going to help you do this. And by doing this, it's going to solve a problem that you have and make you more money and everything else. And by the way, gravy on the, icing on the cake, you get to have a commission. Now partners are going to be much more interested in talking with you.
Man, there's a lot I got to learn, but it's beautiful the way you describe it, because when you bring up like analogies from the savannah, it's very easily to see the lions and get it, or to see the woman who comes home and wants to make sure that she's with her kids and has dinner with the family, but she also has that ambition. Mm-hmm. When you're an entrepreneur, I can never know this because I didn't start out that way. I didn't have these chops inside of me. Do you always have that in you? Do you at a certain point, do you feel sated and like that's enough? Or once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur?
I don't think I could ever actually be employed. I'm going to say never. I never say never, but there's like, for example, I was never a really good team sports player. I was a wrestler. I won 3 state titles wrestling because I knew that whatever I could put into it, I could get out. Right. And so I was a wrestler. And the same thing, being an entrepreneur, what I like is I get rewarded in direct proportion to what I put into the business. I get rewarded. And that's the part that I really like. And let me tell you something. There are many, many, many times throughout my life as an entrepreneur where I hit some lows, and I hit some really, really low lows. And those are the moments that I'm like, oh, why did I choose this? Because this is so hard. All my friends are out there, they're making all this money and they're traveling and they're doing this and that. And I'm like in credit card debt and, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why did I do this? All right. Working weekends, I'm working nights, I'm doing this. This is terrible. But then I get into this, then things start going better again. And, it's like, oh, life couldn't be any better because I have the option. Freedom is about optionality. It's not about not working. It's about the optionality. I have the option. Do I want to work today? Do I not want to work today? I have the option. Do I want to work with you or not work with you? I have the option. Do I want to do this today or do I want to do that today? But if I was an employee, I don't have the same level of optionality. They tell me how much vacation time I can take. They tell me the hours that I have to work. They tell me the tasks I have to focus in on. And for me, that doesn't sit very well. Everybody's different, and we need the world to turn, and everybody's got to like something different than I like.
Yeah.
But remember, I didn't go into entrepreneurship because of inspiration. I went into it for desperation. And there can be an argument that I've lived my whole life trying to prove my love, trying to get my dad's love and attention.
Wow.
Right. So you could go deep and make that argument that by me and the more success that I get, that for me, I'm always still in that moment of a child to do that.
Wow. And you probably can make a case that somebody who grew up in a family where the dad was home at 6 o'clock every night and the mom was making dinner, they didn't feel that desperation. They felt a sense of comfort, which is why they might like a job that makes them feel comfortable. And the interesting thing here is that from the start of our conversation, AI has now entered the game, and it's not going to leave the game. So it seems to me, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think so based on what you just told me. Everybody's going to have to start thinking entrepreneurially. How, whether that means just in your job,
Yeah.
how do I grow this? It's not about just doing what I did last year.
Yeah.
I've got to lift this, maybe even 100%.
That would be intrapreneurship. So intrapreneurship, an entrepreneur
Oh,
within an organization is an intrapreneur.
okay. I never heard that word before.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is
And
that
by the way, what we will see is that maybe by end of 2027, or it could be 2028, but I'm betting towards the end of 2027, employees will be hired as a BOYA, meaning BYOA, bring your own agent. Because we're in an agentic world of workflows and whatnot, you'd be there to bring your own agent. So you hire me, and I've built an infrastructure around my experience and my knowledge and IP. So when you hire me, I'm here, and you're not getting me as the 2025 version of myself. You're actually getting me along with a workflow that supports my IP, that allows me to exponentially perform at a level that is significantly greater than the version that I was in 2025.
wow? That's wild. It's
Isn't
like,
it?
yeah, it's like you're coming in as a team, not as a
Mm-hmm.
person, a
Yep.
team you've assembled. So it's like you've got to be a general manager on a football team that is bringing a team of bots together in order to play together, work together, that you could
Yep.
say, this is what we can do.
As it is right now, I have a infrastructure that I have built of AI agents that know my brain inside and out, probably better than I know myself, that I can talk with and have things done, work in the background, bring it up to me for approval so that I can continue to focus on many other things. And it doesn't replace my team. I have not let a single person, go. What it does is it makes me significantly more effective at the role that I'm at right now. So anything that I do on a repetitive basis, I turn around and I make sure that I train my agents to do that for me. Right now I'm building a new campaign, and I know that this type of campaign we're going to repeat every 6 weeks. So rather than say, okay, let's build it and let's architect this and that, I said, okay, let me train my agent on what I'm learning right now so that the next time I go to build this campaign, I can then say, hey, we're going to build a campaign on this topic. And it knows, okay, we're going to have to create this type of content. These are going to be the themes for the content. This is going to be the angles we're going to have to hit. Okay, boom, here's the project roadmap, the layout. Here's who needs to do this and the platforms that it's going to be posted on. There you go. I just had to give a 3-hour keynote out in Utah. Normally, so I had 3 days to prepare for the keynote, but at the same time, there was traveling, there was networking, there was whole deal. So I actually had a few hours at the end of every evening that I had to prepare for a 3-hour keynote. Now, that sounds crazy. I did have to work quite a bit because
it is crazy. It is crazy.
You know what it is. You speak.
Yeah.
So what happened was I was originally asked to do a 60-minute, and then right before then, the organizer said, you know what? They actually want more of you. I'm going to give up my speaking spot, and you've got 3 hours. And I'm like, you don't spring that on somebody last minute, but I accepted. And so I've done enough presentations that I went to my agent and I said to my agent, look, we are going to have to expand this to now a 3-hour presentation. What needs to happen in order for this particular audience to get this result? And I'm brainstorming with this agent to say, this is, based on all your IP, this is the type of stuff that we can do. Okay, let's reverse engineer this to a 3-hour presentation, help me by creating the framework of what it would look like. Okay, here's the framework of all this looks like. Okay, let's change this. Let's do this. Blah, blah. Okay, got it. Boom. And then I'm like, okay, now that we have this, write me a word for word script of what this presentation now looks like, hitting the emotional arcs that I need to hit in order to drive the outcome. Okay, no problem. Drafts the whole thing word for word. And I'm like, fantastic. This is great. I need a slide presentation. Can you please provide me the slide? Can you please provide me the instructions for what each slide would look like in the content on each slide, so I can then send it out to another agent to get done? Because I didn't build a presentation agent inside of my framework. So it gave me the instructions, and then I passed it to another program that I have that actually built the presentation for me. And then it built the presentation, and then I had it done. So, I mean, granted, there was several hours of back and forth throughout the days, but if I had to script a 3-hour presentation and build the power on my own, that would take several weeks normally.
Right. And all this, the content you've got all this experience to pull from. You just had the team. It's almost like having an offensive line of a football team to push the defense down the field so you can run with the ball, which you always had because you've been doing this for so long and you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
This call, for example, is being recorded on Granola, which is an AI tool.
Okay.
For no other purpose than I might say something that is kind of neat. And now that I have this, it goes into my brain, my AI second brain, so that it continues to learn from something that I said in the event that I want to reference it in, something else. So we're constantly, creating something. You know what I mean?
This is the way we got to think moving forward.
But isn't it true?
No, completely.
Do you learn something every day? True or false? Do you learn something every day?
Yes.
Imagine if you had record of everything that you've learned for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I did think of the last 50. Imagine
if you had record of that.
Yeah.
And imagine if you were to think about a dollar figure that knowledge would have.
Oh man.
It becomes extraordinary.
Right.
The thing is that, you're 69 years old and you have so much context. The one thing that is extraordinary for you, the advantage that you have, is 69 years of context. The questions that you ask are going to be directly proportionate to the context that you've generated over these years. In other words, you and I sitting together, tasked with the exact same problem to solve, will ask different questions and go to accomplish the problem in a totally different way, because you have a context and I have a context. And that becomes a big unique advantage too, because the way that you solve the problem may actually provide an advantage that is far superior to the way that I solve the problem. You may do it differently, get there faster, get there more efficiently, maybe even create something that is 10 times bigger because you had a bigger lens, saw a bigger opportunity than maybe the one I saw.
Wow.
And I had a mobile app, the CEO of a mobile app company called me up 3-4 weeks ago. And he says, hey, can we have a conversation? I said, yeah, what's up? And he's been a client for a number of years. He said, I can't sleep. I'm a little worried. I said, what? And he goes, my industry is facing an existential threat. And I go, yeah, it is. And he goes, okay. I was expecting you to give me a little bit more encouragement than that. And I go, no, it is. It is. And he's like, so then that's it? I go, well, all industries are facing an existential threat. I says, well, I mean, maybe. And he goes, you're not. What do you mean I'm not? I'm business coaching. Of course I have an existential threat. Why didn't you go to AI and ask AI this question? Why'd you jump on the phone with me? I tried. Huh, interesting. And what happened? I couldn't figure it out. Huh. So why are we on the phone? Because I can't figure out the questions to ask.
Oh, man.
I said, right. Hey, you want to know something about you and the mobile app business? And he goes, what? I go, I can go to ChatGPT, or I can go to Claude. I can vibe code an app. You know what the thing is? If I vibe code an app, what do I need to know about this in order to actually make it work well for me? Because, well, you know, the operate's different if you're just vibe coding it for yourself versus if you have 500 people using it at the same time. And then there's a security there. And then there's a blah, 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 blah. And oh my God, he was slinging terms at me I've never even heard before. I don't even know if he was speaking English. But it was just, and I said, you know what the funny thing is? And he goes, what? I go, I never would have known that. You know why? He says, why? I didn't know the questions to ask. And he goes, oh, okay. I get what you're putting down. And I go, yeah, because the thing is we're no longer in the economy of output. We're not in an output-based economy anymore, right? It's easy to create an app. It's easy to create, you know, you can go and type in, how do I do this for my business? Like the actual stuff that you do, that's not important anymore. Yeah, I can do a lot of it. But it's the context you're bringing to the conversation that is far different now. That becomes significantly more valuable. So I didn't know how to build a mobile app. That's why if he leans on that more than saying, hey, I sell mobile app, well, I can do that. But if he sells his experience and puts value on his context, now all of a sudden it's like, ooh, I didn't think about that. I didn't know that. Same reason why he said, I'll never go out of business because, Charlie, I don't even know the questions to ask. I tried to do it. Yeah, got it. And so this is creating an interesting environment where the real experts will continue to thrive and do well and so forth. But if you think that you can turn around and start, say, a mobile app company because you read a few books and now you can all of a sudden claim I can vibe code, you're probably going to be commoditized. Or just because you read a few books and took a few courses, you can call yourself a business coach. But if you never actually created a multi-million-dollar business on your own, and guess what? At some point, you know, your market is going to realize that you don't have a context that's valuable enough for me to pay you money. I'm just going to go on my own and use AI. So it's forcing all of us to up-level our abilities, our skills, our foresight, our everything, because we cannot be commoditized anymore. We are going to some deep places over here.
Okay.
You know, it's an interesting world that we're living, and you have a choice to make. You have a decision. You have a question to ask yourself, right? The question is, how are you ultimately going to approach this new world? Will you approach it as a victim of a technology with a mindset that it's going to put you out of business? And you're going to slip into a deep, dark place of unemployment, hoping and praying that they come up with universal basic income? Or are you going to turn around and say, ask yourself a different question, which is, how could this be the best thing to happen in the world to me right now? How can this be the best thing right now? And if you just constantly ask that question, how can this be the best thing in the world for me right now? Always. It doesn't matter what it is. Even if you're a CEO and crap hits a fan, we're saying this to our team all the time. This is what happened. Why is this the best thing in the world to happen to us right now? They look at me like I'm smoking the wacky tobacco. Well, don't you know this is a problem? Say the same sentence again, but replace problem with opportunity and repeat it. Oh, well, don't you know this is an opportunity? For what? To figure out why he left. How? Why did he leave? Well, we could have done this, we could have done this, and blah, blah. Awesome. Why don't we fix this? Now, if we fix this, what is the outcome? Well, it's going to be much better, blah, blah. Great. See, better questions, better answers. Why is this the best thing in the world to happen to us right now?
Thank you, Charles. That was great.